Zarthik pressed her scaled fingers against the cold metal surface of the data core. The ancient device hummed quietly in the dim light of the great archive. Around her, thousands of storage units held the history of the galaxy. But this one was different. This one might contain proof that the old stories were real. The Valarian archaeologist had spent 3 years studying human myths. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew the tales. Stories of strange beings who could survive in any environment. Creatures who were both savage warriors and gentle healers. A race that built crude ships, but somehow traveled faster than anyone else. Most scholars laughed at these stories. The Galactic Council had made their position clear long ago. Humans were fairy tales. Nothing more than cautionary stories told to young ones about the dangers of being too aggressive or reckless. But Zarthik had always wondered. Why did every species tell the same stories? Why were the details so consistent across different worlds and cultures? The myths describe beings with 2 arms, 2 legs, and strange hair on their heads. They had eyes that could see many colors, and skin that changed from pale to dark, depending on their birthplace. The story said humans were impossible contradictions. They were weak but strong, peaceful but violent, primitive but advanced. According to the tales, they could eat almost anything, live in freezing cold or burning heat, and heal from injuries that would kill other beings. Zarthik activated the data core. The device flickered to life, casting blue light across her reptilian features. She had found this core in a salvage yard on the outer rim. The seller claimed it came from a ghost ship that appeared at the edge of known space. Text began flowing across her scanner. Most of it was corrupted or in languages she didn't recognize. But then something made her breath catch. Star charts. These weren't like any she had seen before. They showed systems that existed beyond the current galactic maps. Systems that had been marked as empty space for thousands of years. Impossible, she whispered. Her translator worked on the text fragments. Slowly, words began to form. Names of places that matched the human myths. Something called Earth, another place named Mars, and strangest of all, references to a star they called Sol. The core contained biological data too, descriptions of creatures that matched human legends perfectly. But the medical scans looked real, too detailed to be fiction. The beings described had incredible healing abilities. They could adapt their bodies to different gravity levels and atmospheric conditions. Their immune systems could fight off diseases that would devastate other species. Zarthik found weapon specifications that made her scales tingle with fear. Simple designs that could crack planets. Ships that looked primitive but had capabilities beyond modern understanding. The humans, if they were real, had possessed technology that seemed like magic. But the most shocking discovery came when she accessed the audio files. Strange sounds filled her laboratory. Rhythmic speech in a language that sounded harsh but musical. Her computer worked to analyze the patterns. After several hours, it gave her an answer that changed everything. The language matched theoretical reconstructions of ancient human speech, found in historical databases. Scholars had created these reconstructions from myth fragments, never believing they represented a real language. But here was actual audio of someone speaking those exact sounds. Zarthik played the recordings over and over. The voices sounded real, emotional. She could hear anger, joy, sadness, and determination in the tones. These weren't the flat sounds of artificial creation. These were real beings talking about real things. One recording stood out. A female voice speaking in calm, measured tones. Her computer worked to translate the sounds into galactic standard language. The words that appeared on her screen made her heart beat faster. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the exploration vessel New Horizon. We are beginning the final phase of the Great Sleep Protocol. To any species that finds this record, know that we did not abandon the galaxy. We chose to wait. When the sickness spreads again, we will return. We promise to protect all life, and we keep our promises." Zarathic stood frozen in her laboratory. This wasn't mythology. This was a message. A promise from beings who claimed they would return when needed. But return from where? And what was this great sleep protocol the voice mentioned? She checked the date stamps on the recordings. If they were accurate, these messages were over 3,000 years old. But that was impossible. No known species had achieved interstellar travel that long ago. The oldest galactic civilizations were barely 2,000 years old. The implications frightened her. If humans were real, if they had existed when the recordings suggested, then they were far older than any current civilization. They would have been exploring space when her own people were still learning to make fire. Zarathic spent the next few days analyzing every fragment in the data core. She found ship designs, star charts, cultural records, and scientific data. Everything painted the picture of a species that had achieved incredible advancement in a remarkably short time. The records suggested humans had spread across half the galaxy in just 2 centuries. They had established colonies on worlds no other species could survive. They had made contact with dozens of alien races and somehow maintained peace with all of them. But then, the records stopped. Suddenly and completely. As if an entire civilization had simply vanished overnight. The last entries mentioned a spreading plague that affected all known species except humans. The final messages spoke of a great sacrifice to save the galaxy. Zarathic knew she had to report her findings to the Council. But she also knew what would happen. They would dismiss the evidence as clever fakes. They would order the data destroyed and probably ban further research into human myths. She made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Instead of contacting the Council, she reached out to other researchers who had shown interest in human mythology. Dr. Miliana Kess, a Terralian xenobiologist who had written papers on theoretical human physiology. Corv, a Thraxian warrior who collected ancient battle stories. Her message was simple. I have proof that humans were real. Meet me at the archive if you want to see evidence that will rewrite galactic history. 3 days later, 6 beings from different species gathered in Zarathic's laboratory. They listened to the recordings, studied the data, and examined the star charts. The room grew quiet as the implications became clear. These charts, Dr. Kesh said softly, they show systems in the quarantine zone. The dead zone where ships disappear. Corv examined the weapon specifications with growing excitement. These designs are brilliant. Simple but incredibly effective. If humans built these, they were the greatest warriors in galactic history. Zarathic looked at each face around her. Fear, wonder, and curiosity mixed in their expressions. There's only one way to know for certain if this is real. We follow the star charts. We go to the dead zone and look for proof. The decision was unanimous. Within a week, they had gathered supplies and chartered a ship. The Galactic Council would never approve such a mission. So they would go without permission, following ancient maps to find a species that might have been sleeping for 3,000 years as their ship jumped to hyperspace. Zarathic wondered what they would find in the forbidden regions of space. Would they discover empty worlds and dead civilizations? Or would they find something far more dangerous than the myths had ever suggested? The hunt for humanity had begun. The ship Starseeker dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the dead zone. Captain Vrex, a grizzled Altarian smuggler, checked his instruments with growing concern. His 4 eyes darted between displays that showed absolutely nothing ahead of them. This is wrong, he muttered through his breathing apparatus. Space shouldn't be this empty. Where are the stars? Zarathic moved to the viewport and gasped. The region ahead looked like a vast hole in space. Stars that should have been visible were simply gone, hidden behind some kind of dark barrier. Only the faintest glimmers of light penetrated whatever lay beyond. The records called it Sol System, she said, consulting the ancient star charts. According to the data core, it should be right here. Dr. Cass ran her scanner over the area. Her Tyrrellian features showed confusion as she read the results. I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies. There are definitely stellar bodies out there, but they're hidden behind some kind of energy field. Corv checked their weapons systems. The Thraxian warrior had insisted on bringing heavy armaments despite the others' protests. His scarred face showed satisfaction as he reviewed their firepower. Good thing we came prepared, he growled. The stories say humans were the greatest fighters in the galaxy. If any are still alive, they might not welcome visitors. Captain Vrex plotted a careful course toward the anomaly. As they moved deeper into the dead zone, their sensors began picking up debris. Not the natural rocks and ice of normal space, but twisted metal fragments that had once been ships. Look at the size of these pieces, Dr. Kess breathed. She analyzed a chunk of hull plating that drifted past their viewport. This came from a vessel at least 5 kilometers long. The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. More debris appeared as they traveled deeper. Weapons platforms the size of space stations floated dead in the void. Massive ships with designs that seemed both crude and incredibly advanced filled their screens. Everything showed signs of tremendous violence. This was a battlefield, Corv said with growing excitement. The greatest battle in galactic history happened right here. Look at those blast patterns on that whole fragment. Whatever did that had firepower beyond our current capabilities. Zarathic studied the wreckage distribution. The debris field stretched for light years in every direction. Ships from dozens of different species lay destroyed alongside the strange human vessels. But the pattern was wrong for a normal battle. The alien ships weren't fighting the human ones, she realized. Look at the positioning. They're mixed together, facing outward towards something else. This wasn't human against alien. This was everyone fighting together against some common enemy. Captain Vrex brought them to the center of the debris field. Here, the energy barrier that hid the inner system was weakest. Their instruments finally began penetrating the veil, revealing what lay beyond. By the 7 moons, Vrex whispered, a blue-green planet hung in space before them, surrounded by rings of massive orbital platforms. The world matched every description of Earth from the human myths. Continents covered in green vegetation and blue oceans sparkled under the light of a yellow star, but the planet appeared lifeless. No energy signatures, no communications, no movement on the surface. The orbital platforms that surrounded it hummed with power, but showed no signs of crew activity. The moon, Dr. Kess said suddenly. Look at their moon. What they had taken for a natural satellite resolved into something far more impressive under close examination. The surface was covered in geometric patterns too regular to be natural. Massive structures rose from crater floors. Weapon emplacements dotted the landscape. It's artificial, Corv breathed. The entire moon is a battle station. The humans didn't just build ships. They turned their satellite into the greatest fortress ever constructed. Zarathic consulted the data core again. Among the star charts, she found approach codes and communication frequencies. With trembling fingers, she input the ancient signals into their communications array. The response was immediate. A voice spoke in the ancient human language, translated automatically by their computers. Unknown vessel, you are entering restricted space. State your purpose and authorization. Be aware that defensive systems are active and will respond to any hostile action. Captain Vrex looked at the others in shock. There's still someone here. After all these years, something is still guarding this system. Zarathic activated their communications array. She had practiced this moment for weeks, memorizing phrases from the audio recordings. In halting ancient human speech, she responded, "This is Archaeological Expedition Starseeker. We come seeking knowledge of the human species. We have evidence of ancient contact and wish to learn the truth about human history." Long minutes passed in silence. Then the voice returned, now speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Interesting. It has been 3,247 years since anyone requested information about humans. You may approach Earth, but be aware that any deviation from approved flight paths will result in immediate defensive action. Follow the guidance beacons to landing platform 7. Lights began appearing in space around them. A path of glowing markers led toward the planet's surface. As they followed the route, massive weapon platforms tracked their movement. The technology was clearly ancient, but it operated with perfect efficiency. These defenses could destroy our entire fleet, Core observed with professional appreciation. Whatever the humans were protecting, they made sure it would stay protected. They descended through Earth's atmosphere, following the beacon trail to a landing platform built into the side of a mountain. The facility was enormous, capable of housing ships many times larger than their own. But it appeared completely automated. No people waited to greet them. As they landed, external speakers crackled to life. The same voice that had guided them spoke again. "Welcome to Earth, visitors. Please remain in your ship while biological scans are completed. Any attempt to exit before clearance is given will activate containment protocols." Red lights swept over their vessel. Dr. Cass monitored the scans with growing amazement. The technology was analyzing not just their species types, but their individual health, genetic markers, and even emotional states. "Scans complete," the voice announced. "You are cleared for a limited surface access. Proceed to Reception Area C for orientation briefing. Be advised that large portions of this facility and planet remain off-limits to non-human personnel." The airlock cycled, revealing a corridor that stretched deep into the mountain. Emergency lighting provided dim illumination, and the air felt stale despite being perfectly breathable. As they walked, their footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness. Reception Area C turned out to be a large chamber filled with holographic displays. The moment they entered, the displays activated, showing images of Earth in its prime. Cities covered the landscape, filled with the two-legged beings from the myths. Ships launched from spaceports, while millions of humans went about their daily lives. "This is a recording made shortly before the Great Sleep Protocol was initiated," the voice explained. "I am Arya, the Autonomous Research and Information Archive. I was created to preserve human knowledge and maintain Earth's defenses during the hibernation period." Zarathic stepped forward. "Arya, are there still humans alive on this planet?" "Yes. Approximately 500 million humans remain in suspended animation in cities beneath the surface. They are waiting for specific conditions to be met before awakening can begin." "What conditions?" Dr. Cass asked. The holographic display changed, showing microscopic images of a spreading infection. "The plague that forced humanity into hibernation is still active in the galaxy. Recent monitoring indicates it has begun affecting modern civilizations. The humans will awaken only when their help is needed to stop the spread." Korv examined images of human weapons and vehicles. "Why didn't they just fight the plague with their technology?" "They tried," Arya replied. "But the plague adapted faster than any cure could be developed. The decision was made to enter hibernation while working on a permanent solution. Human minds remain partially active during the sleep, connected in a vast network to continue research." Zarathic felt a chill run through her scales. "You're saying they've been working on a cure for over 3,000 years?" "Correct. The cure is ready. Humanity chose to sleep until the galaxy truly needed them again. Based on recent data, that time is approaching rapidly. The implications hit them all at once. The myths were true, but incomplete. Humans hadn't vanished or been destroyed. They had voluntarily removed themselves from the galaxy to work on saving it. And now they were ready to return. What happens next? Zarathic asked. That depends on you, Arya responded. The Awakening Protocol requires external confirmation that the galaxy needs human assistance. You must decide whether to activate the signal that will begin bringing humanity back to the stars. The chamber fell silent as 6 beings from different worlds contemplated a decision that would change galactic history forever. Arya led them deeper into the mountain facility through corridors that hummed with hidden power. The walls were lined with symbols and writing in the ancient human language. Zarathic tried to translate some of the text, but most of it dealt with technical concepts beyond her understanding. Before you make any decisions about the Awakening Protocol, Arya said, you should understand the full scope of what humanity accomplished during their active period, and more importantly, what they sacrificed to save the galaxy. They entered a vast chamber filled with holographic displays. The room was so large that its far walls disappeared in darkness. Thousands of screens showed star charts, biological data, historical records, and scientific information. This is the primary archive, Arya explained. Every piece of knowledge humanity gathered during their expansion is stored here, including the truth about why they chose hibernation over continued expansion. The central display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared across half the stellar regions, marking human colonies and exploration sites. In their active period of just 247 years, humans established settlements on over 50,000 worlds, Arya continued. They made contact with 847 different intelligent species. Of those, 612 became allies, 203 remained neutral, and only 32 showed consistent hostility. Dr. Kess studied the biological data scrolling past. These adaptation rates are impossible. How could one species colonize so many different environment types? Human genetics are unusually flexible, Arya explained. They can adapt to different gravity levels, atmospheric compositions, and radiation environments within a few generations. But their greatest advantage was not biological adaptation, but social adaptation. New images appeared showing humans working alongside dozens of different alien species. Thraxian warriors trained human soldiers, while human engineers helped build Valerian cities. Turalian scientists collaborated with human researchers on medical breakthroughs. Humans possessed an unusual ability to understand and work with other species, Arya continued. They learned languages quickly, adapted their technology to alien needs, and found common ground even with hostile races. In most cases, they turned enemies into friends within a single generation. Korv examined footage of human warriors in action. They moved with deadly efficiency, but showed remarkable restraint. In battle after battle, humans chose capture over killing whenever possible. They were warriors, he said with respect, but they fought to protect, not to conquer. Correct, Arya replied. Human expansion was driven by curiosity and a desire to help other species, not by conquest. They shared their technology freely and asked only for friendship in return. Zarathic found this hard to believe, but the myths describe humans as incredibly violent. Stories say they could destroy entire worlds when angered. Also correct, Arya said. Humans were capable of terrible violence when their friends or principles were threatened. Their history shows they fought devastating wars against their own species before achieving space travel. But once they began exploring the galaxy, they channeled that aggressive nature into protection rather than conquest. The display changed to show a timeline of the plague outbreak. It started small, affecting just a few worlds in the outer rim, but it spread rapidly, jumping from species to species. The plague appeared suddenly about 3,300 years ago, Arya explained. It affected every known intelligent species except humans. Symptoms included rapid cellular breakdown, organ failure, and death within weeks of infection. Dr. Kess watched in horror as entire worlds fell to the spreading infection. How many died? Initial estimates suggest 40% of all galactic life was lost in the first wave. Without human intervention, total extinction of all non-human intelligence would have occurred within 50 years. The timeline showed human ships racing across the galaxy, delivering medical supplies and setting up treatment centers. Human scientists worked around the clock to develop cures, while human soldiers protected refugee populations. But every cure we developed, Arya continued, the plague adapted to overcome within months. It was not a natural disease. Analysis suggested it was artificially created, designed specifically to target intelligent life while leaving humans immune. Who created it? Zarathic asked. Unknown. The plague appeared simultaneously on worlds separated by thousands of light years. No known species possessed the technology for such widespread deployment. Human intelligence agencies suspected the involvement of an outside force, possibly extragalactic in origin. The display showed the final desperate battles as human forces tried to contain the plague's spread. They succeeded in saving billions of lives, but the cost was enormous. Human colonies were abandoned as every available person was diverted to medical and humanitarian missions. The decision to enter hibernation was not made lightly, Arya said. Human scientists realized that normal research methods would never produce a permanent cure. The plague adapted too quickly. A different approach was needed. New images showed massive construction projects across human space. Entire worlds were converted into hibernation facilities. The artificial moon they had seen was just one of hundreds of similar installations. The Great Sleep Protocol connected human minds in a vast network, Arya explained. While their bodies hibernated, their consciousness continued to work on the plague problem. Thousands of brilliant minds linked together, operating at accelerated time rates, working on solutions for over 3 millennia. Dr. Kess was amazed. They've been researching for 3,000 years? What did they discover? A cure, Arya said simply. But not just for the plague. The connected human minds developed a comprehensive medical technology that can adapt to any biological system. It can cure diseases, repair injuries, and even enhance natural healing abilities. The display showed microscopic machines that looked like tiny versions of the plague organisms. But these were clearly artificial constructs. Medical nanites, Arya continued. They can adapt to any species' biology and provide immunity to virtually any disease or toxin. But there is a requirement that makes them unique. What requirement? Zarathic asked. They must be programmed by direct contact with human genetic material. The nanites learn adaptation techniques from human DNA, then apply those techniques to other species. Humans must be present and willing to help for the technology to work. The implications became clear. Humans had not just developed a cure for the plague. They had created a medical technology that required cooperation between humans and other species to function. So they made themselves indispensable, Korv observed. Clever. Not by choice, Arya corrected. The requirement is a natural limitation of the technology, not a deliberate design feature. Human adaptability is the key that unlocks the nanite's potential for other species. Zarathic studied the data on plague resurgence. Recent reports from across the galaxy showed new outbreaks beginning to appear. The same symptoms, the same rapid spread, but affecting the modern galactic civilizations that had evolved after humanity's hibernation. The plague is returning, she realized. That's why you said humanity needs to wake up. Correct. Long-range sensors detect the plague signature on 17 worlds and growing. Without human intervention, current galactic civilization has perhaps 10 years before total collapse. Dr. Kess examined the medical specifications. This cure could revolutionize medicine for every species. Even beyond the plague, these nanites could eliminate most diseases across the galaxy. But only if humans choose to share the technology, Arya said. The awakening protocol requires unanimous agreement from the hibernating population. They must vote to end their sleep and return to active galactic involvement. What if they vote no? Zarathic asked. What if they decide the galaxy isn't worth saving? Then they will return to hibernation until the next crisis emerges. Humans learned patience during their long sleep. They will not act unless they are convinced their help is truly needed and wanted. The chamber fell silent as the visitors contemplated what they had learned. Humanity had not been the aggressive conquerors the myths suggested. They had been protectors and healers who sacrificed their own civilization to save others. And now they were the galaxy's only hope against a returning catastrophe. We need to wake them up, Dr. Kess said firmly. The galaxy needs this cure. But think about what we're asking, Zarathic replied. We're asking them to give up their peaceful sleep and return to a galaxy that forgot they ever existed. A galaxy that turned them into myths and monsters. Korv examined the weapon specifications still scrolling past. They're also the most powerful military force in galactic history. If they choose to, they could conquer everything. That is the risk, Arya agreed. Humanity has the power to rule the galaxy absolutely. Their technology, experience, and adaptability make them essentially unstoppable if they choose conquest over cooperation. But they didn't choose conquest before, Zarathic pointed out. They chose to help others. Yes, Arya said. But that was over 3,000 years ago. Hibernation has changed them. Their minds have been linked and working together for millennia. They may emerge as something different from what they were when they went to sleep. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. The decision to activate the awakening protocol was made after 3 days of debate. Captain Vrex had contacted the Galactic Council to report their discovery, only to be ordered to leave immediately and never speak of what they had found. The Council's response convinced them that official channels would only lead to humanity remaining buried and forgotten. Arya guided them to the Awakening Control Center deep beneath the Earth's surface. The chamber was vast, filled with countless screens and control panels. At the center stood a simple chair connected to a complex array of neural interface equipment. The awakening process is gradual, Arya explained. We begin with a small group of volunteers who have spent the hibernation period, serving as coordinators for the sleeping population. They will assess the current galactic situation before deciding whether to wake others. Zarathic approached the central console. How do we activate it? The system requires confirmation from a representative of non-human galactic civilization, Arya replied. You must state your request formally and accept responsibility for the consequences. The weight of 3,000 years of galactic history pressed down on Zarathic's shoulders. She looked at her companions, seeing the same mix of fear and hope in their faces. I, Zarathic of the Valorian Republic, speaking for the peoples of the galaxy, formally request the awakening of humanity. We need your help to stop a plague that threatens all life. We accept responsibility for the consequences of this request. The chamber filled with a deep humming sound as ancient systems came to life. Lights began flashing across the control panels in complex patterns. Arya's voice took on a different tone, more formal and ritualistic. Awakening protocol initiated. Beginning with Priority Group 1, Scientific and Medical Personnel. Estimated time to consciousness, 6 hours. Beginning with Priority Group 2, Diplomatic and Communication Specialists. Estimated time to consciousness, 12 hours. Beginning with Priority Group 3, Military and Security Personnel. Estimated time to consciousness, 18 hours. The process was fascinating to watch. Deep beneath them, in chambers they could not see, millions of sleeping humans began the slow return to consciousness. Their life support systems gradually increased metabolic rates, slowly warming bodies that had been cold for millennia. What happens if they decide not to help? Dr. Kess asked. Then they will return to sleep, Arya replied. But based on preliminary neural scans, there is significant interest in the current situation. The sleeping minds have been monitoring galactic communications throughout the hibernation period. They are aware of how civilization has developed in their absence. 6 hours later, the first human in over 3,000 years opened her eyes. Dr. Sarah Chun emerged from the awakening chamber, looking much like the humans described in ancient myths. She was tall and lean, with dark hair and brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her movements were slow and careful as her body readjusted to consciousness. How long? She asked in the ancient human language. 3,247 years. Arya replied. Dr. Chen absorbed this information without visible emotion. She looked at the group of aliens watching her with curious expressions and spoke in perfect galactic standard. I am Dr. Sarah Chun, Chief Medical Officer of the Hibernation Project. I understand you have requested our assistance with a medical crisis. Zarathik stepped forward. The plague has returned. It's spreading across 17 worlds and growing. Our medical technology cannot stop it. Dr. Chun examined the data displays that Arya brought up for her review. Her expression grew grave as she studied the infection patterns and casualty reports. It's definitely the same organism, she confirmed. But it's evolved during our sleep. The mutation rate has accelerated. If left unchecked, it will devastate current galactic civilization even faster than it did before. More awakening chambers activated over the following hours. Diplomats, scientists, engineers, and other specialists emerged from their long sleep. Each went through the same slow process of orientation and information gathering. Admiral Marcus Webb was among the military personnel who awakened 18 hours after the protocol began. He was a tall man with gray hair and intelligent blue eyes. His presence seemed to command attention, even though he spoke quietly. I've reviewed the current political situation, he announced to the gathered humans. The galactic powers that exist now are much weaker than those we knew before hibernation. They lack the unity and cooperation necessary to handle a crisis of this magnitude. Dr. Chun had been working with Arya to analyze the plague's current form. The medical situation is worse than expected. This new version of the plague is more aggressive and adaptable than before. Without our intervention, total civilizational collapse will occur within 5 years, not 10. The humans gathered in a conference room that had not been used for 3 millennia. Zarathik and her team were invited to observe, but not participate. They watched as humanity's leaders debated their return to galactic involvement. The question, Admiral Webb said, is not whether they need our help. They clearly do. The question is whether they will accept it. Our research indicates current galactic society views us as myths or monsters. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a diplomat with kind eyes and silver hair, had been reviewing cultural reports. 3,000 years of isolation has created a galaxy that doesn't know how to work together. Each species has developed in isolation with minimal cooperation between different races. That makes our job harder, Dr. Chun observed. The medical nanites require close cooperation between humans and the patient species. If they fear us or refuse to work with us, the treatment won't be effective. The debate continued for hours. Some humans argued for a gradual revelation of their existence, slowly building trust before offering help. Others wanted to act immediately, using their superior technology to force cooperation if necessary. Admiral Webb stood and walked to the viewing screen that showed images of infected worlds. We face the same choice our ancestors did 3,000 years ago. We can protect ourselves and let others suffer, or we can risk everything to save people who might not want our help. Our ancestors chose sacrifice, Dr. Chun said. They gave up everything to sleep for 3 millennia while working on a solution. I think that tells us what kind of people we want to be. The formal vote was unanimous. All awakened humans agreed to begin the process of revealing themselves to the galaxy and offering assistance against the plague. But they would do it carefully, working with trusted allies first before approaching the larger galactic community. We'll need more people awake, Admiral Webb decided. Medical teams, engineering specialists, and enough support staff to establish contact with multiple worlds simultaneously. Dr. Chun began planning the medical intervention. We'll start with the most severely affected worlds. Small teams working directly with local medical personnel to demonstrate the effectiveness of our treatment. And if they refuse our help? Dr. Vasquez asked. Then we document our efforts and move on to the next world, Admiral Webb replied. We cannot force salvation on people who don't want it. All we can do is offer help and hope they're wise enough to accept. Over the following days, more humans emerged from hibernation. Engineers began updating their technology for compatibility with current galactic systems. Medical teams prepared nanite treatments for different species types. Diplomats studied current languages and cultural practices. Zarathik found herself working directly with Dr. Chun on the first treatment protocols. The human doctor was patient and thorough, explaining how the nanites would work and what risks were involved. The treatment is not permanent, Dr. Chun explained. The nanites break down naturally after about 50 years. Recipients would need periodic renewals to maintain immunity. Why design it that way? Dr. Kess asked. Safety, Dr. Chen replied. We learned long ago that permanent biological modifications can have unexpected consequences. This system allows for adjustments and improvements over time. The first human ship in 3,000 years prepared to leave Earth orbit. It would carry a small medical team to the nearest infected world to begin field trials of the cure. The ship's design was sleek and advanced, but unmistakably human in its practical efficiency. Admiral Webb reviewed the mission parameters one final time. Remember, we are not conquerors returning in triumph. We are doctors making house calls to patients who have forgotten we exist. Our goal is healing, not dominance. Dr. Chun checked her medical supplies and nanite cultures. The galaxy is about to rediscover that humans are real. Let's make sure their first impression is positive. As the ship departed Earth, Zarathik realized they had set in motion events that would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity was awakening from its long sleep, bringing hope for the plague victims, but also uncertainty about what kind of galaxy they wanted to create. The myths were ending. Reality was about to begin. 6 months after the first human ship left Earth, the galaxy was no longer the same. Word of humanity's return had spread through both official and unofficial channels, creating reactions that ranged from desperate hope to outright panic. Zarathik stood in the Great Assembly Hall on Centaurus Prime, watching representatives from 300 different worlds argue about humanity's place in galactic society. The debates had been going on for weeks without resolution. They saved Kepler-442b, shouted Ambassador Thrax, his blue skin flushed with emotion. 17 million Aquarian lives were preserved because human medical teams arrived in time. How can you call them a threat? Senator Vok from the Taurelian Confederacy stood to respond. But at what cost? They demand unprecedented access to our biological data. They insist on working directly with our medical personnel. This could be an elaborate plan for conquest through medical dependency. Zarathik had witnessed the truth firsthand. She had accompanied Dr. Chun's team to 4 different worlds, watching humans work tirelessly to save lives. They shared their knowledge freely, trained local medical staff in nanotreatment protocols, and asked for nothing beyond basic cooperation. But not everyone trusted their motives. Some species refused human aid entirely, preferring to risk plague infection rather than accept help from legendary beings. They still considered mythical threats. The Thraxian delegation took the floor. Korv himself stood as their primary representative, his warriors bearing commanding attention from the assembly. "I have fought alongside humans," he announced. "I have seen them risk their lives to save our civilians. Yes, they are powerful beyond our current understanding. Yes, they could conquer us if they chose. But they choose to heal instead of harm." Admiral Webb entered the assembly hall quietly, his presence immediately noticed despite his attempt at discretion. He wore a simple uniform bearing no rank insignia or decorations. Behind him walked Dr. Chun and Dr. Vasquez, equally unadorned. The hall fell silent as the 3 humans approached the central speaking platform. Many of the assembled representatives had never seen a living human before. They studied the beings who had become legend, looking for signs of the mythical powers attributed to them. Admiral Webb activated the translation system and began to speak in calm, measured tones. "Representatives of the galactic community, we come before you not as conquerors or saviors, but as neighbors offering to help with a shared problem." His words were simple, but the impact was profound. Here was a member of the species that had dominated half the galaxy 3,000 years ago, speaking as an equal rather than a superior. "We understand your concerns about our intentions," Dr. Chun continued. "Our history shows we are capable of great violence when threatened, but it also shows we prefer cooperation to conflict. We return to the galaxy not to rule it, but to preserve it." Senator Vaughn stood again. "But you demand access to our most sensitive medical data. You insist on working directly with our populations. How do we know this isn't preparation for some form of biological control?" Dr. Vasquez responded with patience that impressed even the skeptical delegates. "Because our treatment requires genuine cooperation to work effectively. The nanites cannot function if the patient species is coerced or frightened. Fear and stress interfere with the biological processes the nanites need to adapt properly." She activated a holographic display showing successful treatments on various worlds. "Every effective cure we have administered required willing participation from both human medical teams and local patients. Coercion would make our technology useless." The debate continued for hours. Representatives demanded guarantees about human intentions, limitations on human activities, and oversight of human medical programs. The 3 humans listened patiently to every concern and answered every question. Finally, Ambassador Mythal of the Centauran Republic asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "What do humans want in return for this assistance? What are your terms?" Admiral Webb exchanged glances with his colleagues before responding. "We want to be part of the galactic community again, not as rulers or overlords, but as contributing members. We want to share our knowledge and learn from yours. We want to help build a civilization that can handle future crises without requiring such extreme measures as our hibernation." "That's all?" Senator Vaughn asked suspiciously. "No territorial demands? No special privileges?" "We have no need for territory," Dr. Chun replied. "Our hibernation technology allows us to maintain large populations with minimal resource consumption. We don't need to expand or conquer to survive." Dr. Vasquez added, "As for privileges, we ask only for the same rights and responsibilities as any other galactic species. We want to trade, to research, to explore alongside you. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is normal, not extraordinary. The assembly recessed for private deliberations. Zarthik found herself in a corridor with the three humans, away from the political tensions of the main hall. "How are your people adjusting to being awake again?" she asked. Admiral Webb smiled for the first time she had seen. "It's challenging. 3,000 years of shared consciousness creates bonds that are difficult to break. But we're remembering what it means to be individuals again." Dr. Chun checked a communication device that had been updating her on medical missions across the galaxy. "The adjustment is worth it. We've now successfully treated plague outbreaks on 37 worlds. The infection rate has dropped by 60% in treated areas. But some worlds still refuse your help," Zarthik observed. "Yes," Dr. Vasquez said sadly. "Fear is a powerful force. Some species would rather die as themselves than live with our assistance. We respect that choice, even though it pains us." The assembly reconvened with a decision that surprised everyone. Rather than a single galaxy-wide treaty, they proposed a voluntary association. Worlds could choose their level of engagement with humanity, from full partnership to minimal contact. "The Galactic Health Cooperative," announced Ambassador Thrax, "will coordinate medical assistance between human teams and member worlds. Participation is voluntary. Standards are transparent. Benefits are shared equally." It wasn't the unified response Admiral Webb had hoped for, but it was a beginning. Over the following months, the cooperative grew as more worlds saw the effectiveness of human medical technology and the sincerity of human intentions. Corv established the first joint training program, where human and alien military personnel learned from each other. The humans taught advanced tactics and technology while learning about the cultural and biological diversity of modern galactic civilization. Dr. Cass worked with human scientists to establish research centers that combine human adaptability with contemporary knowledge. Together, they made breakthroughs in medicine, engineering, and physics that neither species could have achieved alone. A year after humanity's awakening, Zarthik stood on Earth's surface for the first time. The planet was coming back to life as humans emerged from hibernation cities. Gardens were being planted, oceans were being restocked with life, and the great orbital platforms were being converted from defense stations to research facilities. She found Admiral Webb in the rebuilt city of Geneva, working in a simple office that overlooked a lake. He was reviewing reports from human teams scattered across the galaxy, coordinating efforts to establish the new cooperative civilization they had all agreed to build. "Do you ever regret waking up?" she asked. Webb looked out at the lake, where human children were playing alongside young beings from a dozen different species. Families that had volunteered to leave their homeworlds and help with Earth's restoration filled the parks and streets with the sound of multiple languages and laughter. "Never," he said simply. "This is what we dreamed of during the long sleep. Not human dominance, but human integration. We're finally part of something larger than ourselves." Dr. Chun joined them, carrying a datapad filled with the latest medical reports. "The plague is officially contained," she announced. "No new outbreaks in the past 3 months. The last infected worlds are responding well to treatment." "And the nanotechnology?" Zarthik asked. "We're sharing the manufacturing process with any world that wants it," Dr. Chun replied. "Within 5 years, every species in the cooperative will be able to produce their own medical nanots. We won't be needed for routine treatments." "But you'll still be here," Zarthik observed. Admiral Webb nodded. "We'll still be here, working, learning, growing alongside everyone else. That's what neighbors do." The view from Webb's office showed a galaxy in transformation. Ships from hundreds of worlds traveled freely between systems. Joint research stations studied phenomena that had puzzled scientists for millennia. Medical teams responded to crises with speed, an effectiveness that would have been impossible before human awakening. The myths about humanity had been replaced with something better: reality. Humans were not the perfect saviors or terrifying conquerors of legend. They were people with strengths and weaknesses, hopes and fears, just like everyone else in the galaxy. But they were people with a unique gift for adaptation and cooperation. People who had proven they would sacrifice everything to protect others. People who chose partnership over power whenever given the choice.